Hi everybody, it's Vanessa. It is not a Sunday. How strange. Wait, I'm just gonna adjust this so you don't have to look at my fire alarm. So we were just having too much fun yesterday. And I didn't want the pressure of trying to finish the fun before coming and doing something more, spiritual, more important. No, see, these aren't the right words. We just didn't want to stop. How's that? So I'm actually going to start just with a little silence and kind of start the way we all began with this over a year ago now, and listening to the music that my husband created for the chakras. So you're just going to listen while we let some other people join. Take a few deep breaths and then we'll dig on in. Hi, ladies. So if you're just joining us, just close your eyes for a moment, just focusing on the sound and the music. So, if you don't know or don't recall, when Bill made this music, I kind of just challenged him to keep it in the keys and the progression of the chakras. And, he did it so easily, and it wasn't perfect, and we didn't even try to edit because we literally finished everything at, I don't remember, like 2 a.m. the night before meditation. And so you can hear he brings the swells in, he's got a constant sound, and then he has little plinky notes up there just to keep your attention. But what I love about this type of music is that it really sings to the whole being. So if we think of the layers of how we are, or how we see ourselves, like the construct of us, it's really in these layers. And if you hear somebody go, oh, I have all this healing to do, and I thought I was done with that, what do we always say? It's like peeling a what? An onion, right? We're always like, it's like peeling an onion. It's just another layer of work to do. And I think now more than ever, I understand that more fully. It's not about just finishing with one layer and then going to the next. It's really about touching all of them simultaneously. And parts just kind of rise up to the surface like that swell, and other parts bring our attention somewhere else, like the plinky notes. And everything, there's like a constant cosmos force going on. So there's all this sustain happening all at once. And that's why music, right, we spoke about this a few weeks ago, can do so much for our inner beings, because it has the same intricacies that our soul, our being has. And the way we think about ourselves is always challenged. So that's the good news, guys, because we should be challenged. Otherwise, we'd be boring. boring. So tonight, we had Father's Day, which, is celebratory for some, and for others, it's very mournful. Just like Mother's Day, the same. And also, it was the beginning of summer, the official beginning of summer. And I always think back to when I was in my yoga teacher training at Grappalo, and how we got up at, like, I don't remember, something like 4:30 in the morning, and went in silent meditation and played singing bowls and watched the sunrise on the longest day of the year, and like we stayed up till the sunset, and it was so special. So I look forward to things like that. But yesterday for me was a beautiful, happy day, with moments, of course, of solemnness, thinking of the people that we've lost along the way. But I just spoke to them like I would anybody else. So that's what we did. And now it is time to dive into dun, 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 the divine masculine. Renee's like, that's what we just dove right in there. So, yeah, Kristen's go. So we're scuba diving in or something. We're just going down deep. So there's so many ways of doing this, and actually I almost have more to say about the divine masculine than I do the divine feminine. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because we have such a construct of how masculine is seen. So I really am trying to keep it compact for tonight because I want to touch upon the most basic and the most important, I think. So the divine feminine, if you recall, like, it's very simple to think of the divine feminine. I think we're pretty much aware of that at this point because it was so funny. It wasn't just me, obviously, because the day after I spoke about the divine feminine, Deepak Chopra put a whole big thing on with Alicia Keys about 22 days of meditation for the divine feminine. Why? Because the planet is way out of balance in the harmony of it. So the biggest thing to remember here is that divine and masculine are not actually, arch nemesis. They're not against each other, and they're actually supposed to be in complete harmony. So remember, balance is a yin-yang balance. It's an ebb and flow. There's never like, oh, we're equals, which is why the struggle to be equal with male and female is always so injurious, because it's still a struggle of power. And if we deconstruct our views on that, sorry, my music is going to change, wait, pause. If we work to deconstruct our views on that, we'll have a lot more ease into it. So bear with me on this one. So when we think of divine feminine qualities, pretty easy to think of right away, I think. But we already spoke about that. We're just going to review a little bit. Give me some simple qualities of divine and feminine. Who's coming in there? Is that Mikey? So come on, give me some divine feminine's qualities.
Costco, BJ.
I'm at BJ's wholesale.
Guys, keep it together. You're live. Divine feminine, ladies.
Oh. Sensitive.
Sensitive, absolutely. What'd you say?
Nurturing.
Sensitive, nurturing, compassionate, empathetic. They all basically go hand in hand, right? Always taking care of each other and just loving in that type of sense. And there's way more than that, but those are the basic ones that come to mind pretty quickly and pretty easily, right? And generally, when we think of divine feminine being out of whack, this is my view of it at least, it's usually not by the way we think of it. Like, because what I mean, like, we think of him in the natural forms like that. Oh, that's beautiful, that's sweet, that's sensitive. It's more of how, when the imbalance happens or imbalance happens, that we start to talk about it in a negative manner, like weak, right? Weak, oversensitive, dramatic. These words start to come up, which are super uncomfortable, really demeaning, and then everything starts to go out of balance. And that's why in the workplace there's so much of like, well, you have to be a bitch to be a boss, and you have to be like this. And that's not how, that's not how it should work. So the divine masculine, not much is said about the divine masculine because history-wise, people have portrayed male energy as overpowering, stern, and I would call those the nice words. I'm sure we can come up with a few nasty words. Would you like to give me some nasty words? Kristen's smirking and Renee's taking a drink. So that they don't want to say anything. Give me a not good word for a masculine imagery.
Well, like you said, overpowering.
Overpowering, definitely.
I can keep saying strong, but that's not. Right,
you're saying it like in a bad way, like too forceful, manipulative maybe sometimes, right?
Manipulative, stern.
Yeah, it could basically keep coming to the same things. So,
Rat bastard.
what'd you say? What?
Rat bastard.
A rat bastard.
You're a rat bastard.
That guy's a rat bastard. All right, so so it's really important to understand that these parts of it that we're discussing, you know, how we see the poor stereotypes happen for both feminine and masculine, that's not the divine essence by any means. And really what it is, it's because there's an imbalance going on, and that's why it starts to go so out of whack. And then we label it because we love to label things. If we see a strong woman, then she's obviously a bitch. If we see a strong man, he's supposed to be like that. That's really macho. If we see a man cry, like, I don't have to reiterate all these things. What I want to focus on is understanding that you have to unlearn these things. It's really, really important, right? So when you see a male in a yoga, taking a yoga class, somebody's going to assume that they're there because, what? They want to be with the other women, right? Or they're there because they have to prove something, whatever. You can see anything in a bad way. But let's invite ourselves to experiencing something more fully, right? My friend Gagliardi over there, you know, we talk, and he talks a lot about some of his issues and his sensitivities and things like that. And I love that because he talks about it freely and he says it live for everybody to hear and understand that I would never say Mike is not anything but more balanced than he thinks in the divine masculine and feminine. Really, really sensitive guy and also very strong. So let's go into some of the stuff. So when we talk about the negative ways of it, I'm going to change the term negative into shadow. Shadow is what we all experience on a daily basis. Shadow is there because there's light, and light is there because there's shadow. Okay? So in energy, this is actually a more helpful way of describing these things. There's a shadow side to everything. And the shadow side presents itself when there's imbalance. And also when people have decided that it's a certain way. So what is the divine masculine? Let me just read this because it's nice and easy. I've tried to find the simplest page to follow because, like I said, there's a lot about this. Some masculine energy traits include being protective, grounded, leading, and brave. And when you think of the greatest men in history, or even just good men in your life, you will notice that these are similar traits that they share. So take a moment and think of the dominant men in your lives, right? And some might be father figures, uncles, you know, boyfriends, men in even your high school, things like that. And some will be fantastic. Hopefully you have some fantastic human beings that have been in your life. And some will be really bad in the sense of maybe they've done horrible things. There's both, and there will always be both. And even the really good ones may have done some stuff because everybody does. So I want you to think of which ones are the most dominant in your life, past, present, or future. I'm just gonna mute who's making some sounds. I don't know. Okay. You got those people in your head? Can you think of at least, I would say at least 3, if not 5. And some of them won't be who you would think are. This is like the same type of question of who are the most 5 important people in your life. And you start to realize that it's not all people that you care for. It's mostly the people that have shaped your life in some way, good, neutral, or bad. And this is the same type of thing here. You just want to be able to identify who's the most predominant in your life. And then when you think of that, then I want you to only turn your attention to the ones that are the most positive. Who are the most positive people in your life? Most positive men. And I bet you'll start to notice that these qualities are there, and they're there in big expansion. They're not just kind of there. They're really there. They're the ones that are go-getters, that are probably a little bit more silent than loud in a sense. They have a strong presence. They don't need to talk a lot sometimes. When they speak, they really mean it, and their words carry a lot of weight. Can you think of anybody like this? Renee, immediately, I feel like your dad was like that. Like, he didn't,
Oh yeah, definitely.
right? He didn't speak all that much, but like when he did, you really listened. You're like, okay, got it. They are your protectors. You got those guys in your life? I really hope you do. So, is masculine energy inherently evil? Of course not, right? Of course not. But because it's so strong, and this is how I feel about tiger's eye, I have a weird relationship with tiger's eye. It's a very, very strong stone. So when I was younger, I liked it probably because I had a big imbalance in the masculine energy of my life. And now, over the years, I only use it in small amounts. So it's just really good to know what you're being attracted to and what's not really working for you, because that shows what's already in your energy field. Make sense? I think I said field, energy field. Right. So because it's so strong, we can say it's like susceptible to abuse, and that's because we have to have that balance consistently. So it's the same type of thing if somebody whatever, they have a leadership position, and over the years they're just so used to being in the leadership position, everybody's like treating them a certain way, and they decide that this is them, right? And then something turns and the shadow part starts to come out more, and that's where abuse comes from. It's not because they only decided it, it's because other people have also contributed to that imbalance. Does that make sense, right? So if we treat somebody fantastic, or like we only focus on them instead of focusing on all, we're going to have this strong imbalance. Okay. True masculine energy never seeks to overpower anything or anyone. And this is something to really, really remember. So when you think of somebody, and remember, this is like non-gender specific. You don't have to be male, female, or anything like that, just to have divine and masculine or feminine. We all have both. So this is important because when you see somebody who is, identifying as male or whatever, and they aren't what you think the way they should be, or the way they would be, and you're trying to put them in this like box and try to figure out like, well, why aren't you like that? Or blah, blah, blah. That's why I'm saying we have to deconstruct it, because when we free ourselves of those thoughts of how it's supposed to look, you'll start to see that somebody has this divine masculine in them, and it's really, really beautiful, and it's totally not scary, and it's not abusive. And that's really important. I just got the chills as I said that, because it's really, really important to identify that when you have somebody in your life that is really supportive and they have this strong energy around them, but they're not abusing it and they're really kind of soft with it. That's the harmony of it, because the divine feminine can soften that power, can soften it to be a certain way. So just remember, like, it gets actually more blurry because yin yang, remember, it's like it's not one or the other, it starts to be both. I'm getting text messages, sorry guys. So instead of domineering, this energy is all about stability, support, and strength. And now this is super interesting, because if you recall that first main chakra that we've spoken about, do you remember? It's the root, right? And the root, what do I always say? You're working in the basic hierarchy of needs. And that's what? Stability, security. What was the other one? And strength. Strength really goes into the other middle chakras, but it's the same thing, because if you have a weak root system, that grounding energy, everything else basically suffers immediately, faster than you can possibly think. So here's that divine masculine, and I don't think it's really taught. I mean, I'm a Reiki master, and I don't really ever remember reading so much that they identify it more as like divine masculine or something like that. I could be wrong, but it's generally not said as far as I've experienced. If anybody else has seen it directly like that, please let me know. It's more of just how the chakra is, but you can see how these qualities would lend itself to, oh, that kind of makes more sense, right? That if we think of like the roots of the tree having that support system, it doesn't mean the feminine isn't there. It just means it's more of a quality of divine masculine. And as my daughter, who's 6, loves to say, now this is her thing, when we pray to God and we say he, she goes, or she, it doesn't really matter, because he's like both and all of the above. And she says all this, it's so funny. I'm like, you're probably, yes, exactly. It's all the same, Mom. It's all the same. I know, you're right. Stability, support, and strength. So we're really thinking of this foundation again. And that's why the divine masculine is going to be really, really important in your life. So if you don't have that type of support from an early age, you had to find a way to gain it somewhere. We're going to pause on the thought of how to gain it somewhere, because if you didn't find it yet, or you feel like you're really still suffering without that, we're going to work on it. Okay. So if the female energy is leaning more towards emotions, which we basically established earlier, right? Then the male energy complements it by leaning more towards logic, what we say in daily lives. Basically, we're like right brain, left brain. We kind of already know this stuff, right? And this just goes over that. And we already said, is masculine energy only found in males? Definitely not. Hi, Mary. How are you? So when you're told you're too feminine or too masculine, chances are you probably haven't explored the other energy yet. Remember that the true spiritual awakening lies in harnessing these energies equally. So somebody that seems more one than the other, there's nothing wrong with that. But what they're missing from it is the qualities balancing one another. So there are reasons to explore the other side. So if we're thinking of as the masculine divine as having the stability and support in it, then you can only imagine, like, if you're like more balanced on the feminine side, you're going to start to have the shadow side of the divine feminine, where you seem more weak, or you seem more inactive or passive, and that will harm you in your life. It'll probably keep you in places that you don't want to be, like could even be an abusive relationship, and you feel like you cannot get that strength up to get out of it. So that's where feminine seems weak, and I get the chills again. That's just recognition, like we're on the right path, right? Why you need to awaken your divine masculine. Lots of benefits. I'm going to just skim this. When you get past the idea, that polarity between male and female traits, you'll notice that the sacred masculine energy has so much to help. What's in store for you? You become more assertive. Because masculine energy is naturally leading, tapping into it makes you feel more confident about yourself. Again, think about the chakras, right? We're in those lower chakras, building the self-confidence. It strips you off of your hesitance when it comes to having the upper hand. You will find yourself taking more initiative when it comes to group tasks. Lastly, you will have more courage to say what you want instead of keeping ideas to yourself in fear of rejection. So this is interesting, right? Because that's fueling from the lower chakras, the self-confidence. It starts to fuel into the throat chakra, right? And this is how you can see that solid blend of the divine, feminine and masculine helping each other. I love that. So you're like, all right, I can do it. And then the throat starts to go like, okay, I'll release because I believe you. So that's awesome. Setting boundaries gets easier. Raise your hands if you're constantly going, I just set that boundary. Why is that being tested again? Oh, it's another boundary yet again. I thought we were done with this boundary. Just like the damn layers of the onion, right? It keeps coming. Oh, this boundary was so comfortable for like a few months, and now it's terrible again. Or if you even get to a few months, sometimes it's less than that. That's okay, because the more you set your boundaries, even when they seem small, the more they get tested. That just means that you keep getting to not only redefine, but really get them better and better and better and better, more precise, until you have a balance between your needs, the other person's needs, and just what's healthy, right? And that changes over time because you keep changing and they keep changing. And your needs keep changing, so does theirs. Their situation change, so does yours. And that's why you have to be really, really in your power. So we're building the self-confidence, we're opening up into the third chakra, and then we just keep having to set boundaries. But the good news is, when you're able to channel the divine masculine, it gets easier. And I can totally speak to this because I've been working with a shamanic coach, which I've shared before, and I didn't label it as masculine, but the work that we've done. But what I did notice is that immediately, the first time we did a shamanic journey, my higher power was a Native American male. So, and later on, my higher power was my higher self was the Native American female, and I knew it was me. So like I knew that we were working together. So when you do that type of meditation, you get to see those things. This is interesting. You become less sensitive. Well, this is a broad statement. Do we want to be less sensitive overall? It depends on the part of it, right? Of what we're talking about. I love being sensitive. However, if somebody says something and it just tweaks me the wrong way, now I have the option of not saying anything. Chances are if I don't say anything, I probably will let it get into my brain like a big old worm and stay in there, and then go into my dreams, and then go into the rest of my week and how I talk to other people. And it just snowballs and snowballs and snowballs. So when they're talking about being less sensitive, what they're really saying is like, are you able to process the feelings in a different manner? And then when you're faced with a conflict, can you become more objective in your decisions instead of basing everything on your current emotion? So this is funny because we can say that maybe it's going to make us less reactive, or maybe it's making us less processing internally. And there's both I would say there's shadows in this in both divine and masculine, because the masculine, I would say the shadow of it would be a very loud and possibly, maybe violent or whatever reaction to something. And then the divine might be more dramatic with the body or leaving or whatever, and more of an emotional shutdown. So there's both. And I think it's fabulous to try to think of these things, because when you're faced with the conflict, how do you show up is really, really relevant to what's your balance here. Make sense? So take a pause for a moment, and I want you to think of how you show up in conflict. Let's start with something simple. Kristen's laughing at me because I know why. So let's start with something simple, like, because there are differences. A fight with a family member. Doesn't have to be a big, bash it out fight, but how do you show up in a fight with a family member? An argument, just an argument. Are you slamming a door? Are you yelling at each other? Somebody slap somebody, whatever it is. Like, you don't have to tell me everything. I just want you to know how you show up. How do you show up with a colleague or a coworker? Miscommunications, like what happens? Do you retreat? Are you running off to tell somebody? Just, you need to know how you show up. How do you show up with a neighbor? All these things, they're showing you, they're telling you, like, well, my initial reaction is to scream, cry, whatever. You need to know. The divine feminine can be soft, so it needs masculine energy to integrate a certain level of logic with your emotions. This is fantastic, because when you're showed that conflict, now you take your breath, you do your breath work, and you just take a beat back and just wait for both to balance, because they actually do that. It's pretty wild if you're able to take yourself out of it, because I think the divine feminine forces you to want to stay there and finish the outpouring of the emotion with the person, and that's like kind of beating a dead horse in a fight. One reference to my favorite couples book, remember? Wired for Love by Dr. Stan Tatkin. Follow him on Instagram, please. Not because I get anything for it, just because it will change your life. He always says you are allowed like 15 minutes for an argument. And then after that, your resources are spent. So come to an okay place and then revisit it again if you need to later. This is really, really important. So when you take this breath and this beat back, you have the ability to allow the masculine part to start reasoning it out with logic instead of staying in this high alarmist state that's going to cause a lot more words, possibly. So take that breath, or 10 or 15 or just 20 minutes away. 8 ways to awaken your divine masculine. So as we said before, they're saying examine your idea of masculinity. Really, really important. So now you're on a journey to awakening your divine masculine. It's imperative that you perceive masculinity without bias and prejudice. So immediately, gone are the days when men are expected to not cry, or when they couldn't be told to help out with the household chores. As you go along, you will see manhood in a different light. You will realize that being a real man is not all about machismo. You know, and machismo is like a funny word, because if you think about your circle of people that you speak to on a regular basis or that you hang out with, and if you identify them now versus like maybe 10 years ago, I'm sure they're different. Not because you've decided you like a person a certain way so much better, but because everybody evolves, right? So if 10 years ago, 20 years ago might have been even more different, right? What's attractive in a person has changed over time. Even the way you speak, you know, I used to be so sarcastic. I feel like as I got older, I thought it was more injurious. So now if I'm sarcastic, it's more about who I'm speaking with, that I choose to have the sarcasm and like have fun with it, because I know they think it's fun. But not everybody thinks that stuff is fun, guys. So it's the same type of stuff. You have to know your audience, and you have to know what your intentions are. So even something as simple as making jokes at somebody else's expense can end up being actually more violent to them than you ever thought. So just something to think about. So that examines your idea of masculinity. Was somebody murmuring or humming? Who's that? All I see from Mike is a light. Looks like one of those anglerfish. I'm like, what the hell's happening? Explore the concept of fatherhood. What is a father to you? What traits should a man possess to be considered a good father? How is your relationship with your father? You know, if you're lucky to have your father still around, I'm sure he's different than he was when you were a child. Sometimes it was fantastic as a child, and now you have a harder time as an adult. And sometimes it's the reverse. It was harder time as a child, and now you're an adult and things have softened. And especially if you have them into their elderly years, their senior years, they generally soften quite a bit, and you're able to find some compassion towards it. So it's important to go to each part of your life and your memories and have some healing with that. If your father is not around, you know, I hope you still talk to him, because he's obviously there in spirit and guiding everything. And I hope that my girls on Zoom had some feelings of their daddies on Father's Day. Good. We'll talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Yep.
Be action-oriented. This is a tough one for people, because I feel like people think that you have to be a natural leader, or just naturally type A, to have this type of movement in your life. And well, it's just not true. It's just not true. Action oriented basically means that you know, you think of something that you need or want, and you just go out and start the movement for it. It doesn't have to be like, I've decided I want this car and tomorrow I'm going to get this car. No, that's thinking way too small. We're talking about what you really want in your life. How do you want to serve it? How do you want it to serve you? What's your soul path? How can we use this spiritually? It's the movement of it. So what do I always say? We can start with these tiny, tiny motions of what we want, what we're going to do. And we're leading up to this big goal. And maybe for you, a big goal is, I don't know, taking out a holly bush around the tree that was ticking you off for years, right? That was pretty masculine of us. We were like tearing it out.
It bothered you, huh?
It bothered me. I passed the holly bush the other day. I thought of you. It was very aggressive. But my point is something that seems so silly, but if it's hanging over your head, the divine masculine is telling you to attack it and to just go for it. So we attacked the holly bush, and it attacked us back. take on leadership roles. I feel like these both go hand in hand. They don't have to, but they do, because the difference between a leader and somebody who steps back is basically the leader sees what needs to be done and doesn't wait for other people to step in. All right, so they usually are the ones that like, oh, okay, I'll try to hold back, but they can only give it a little time. If they don't see no other action happening, they're out there. They're going to make their move because they don't want things to fall apart. I speak that from experience. I don't always want to be a leader, but if I don't see people taking action, I can't just sit there. It's like, I got to do this then. So let's see. Sacred masculinity grows in situations where you lead. It is because the divine masculine is a giver. It likes being able to contribute and be of help to other people. To some extent, you can relate this to how we perceive men as providers. Interesting, right? Because masculine energy dislikes being unused, it always finds a way to provide, even if it's a small help to anyone. I love that. This active nature makes leading a pack an easy task for you. So think of it that way too. If you're worried about stepping into action or stepping into a leadership role, understand that you do it for a cause. And that's generally what will give somebody who's imbalanced with the divine feminine a natural leadership role, because they have this masculine energy available to them, and yet they are more imbalanced with the divine feminine. So it won't be an abuse of power. It actually comes out to be something very beautiful, because they know they're serving and benefiting others. That's the true divine masculine. Build an expertise and stick to it. Yes. How many times do you think you're like, I'm gonna do this, and then like you get like halfway through and you start to like fade out, and you put your tools down or you put your books down or whatever it is, and you just like let it go? No, pick something small, a single skill, and hone it. Really become an expert. You will probably feel so empowered when you really can say, oh, I know about that. I know about that, and I can teach you. As you awaken your divine masculine, you will find always aiming for greater heights, because self-growth has surely become a priority. I think that will also balance out the divine feminine, because we're such caregivers, right? So we tend to get sidetracked sometimes. It's very easy for women to get sidetracked because we're so worried about putting other people first. So there's that balance that divine masculine calls you to really balance it out and hone it in. All right, time is going fast, guys. Number 6, develop your self-confidence. We were just talking about this before. This can even be in your posture. Ever hear about men telling each other how to have a stance? Right? There's a power stance. There's the way you hold yourself. There's ways you shake hands, the way you place your hands. All that body language, all that stuff, when you speak and act confidently, it shows people that there is strength. And there's strength in carrying yourself. You can make yourself look bigger, stronger, you know, all this stuff just by the way you are. And you talk like that, you act like that, and then you just will be that. If you find yourself hunched over and cuddled in a corner, I bet you feel kind of weak. If you find yourself really standing up and moving strongly, you're going to feel strong. Okay, we're going to go fast to this. Learn accountability. This is one that, you know, this is where we can say the divine feminine, you can see how they can balance each other out and can be both in this way. Real masculinity does not resist accountability. Because masculine energy is a leader by nature, you should also learn how to be responsible for your decisions. I bet if you think of the most annoying things in your life right now, politics or anything like that, what ticks you off more than anything? Probably because they don't accept any responsibility. So just own it. Oh no, you made a mistake. Oh, I misspoke. I misheard. I misread. Whatever. Okay. This is where females tend to play the victim, because we're so used to being victimized. So that word goes into our psyche, and we start to own it like, well, that's what I am. I grew up like that. Now I'm going to be like that. Now something else happens to me, and that's it. That's not it. And so it's either admitting that you were wrong, or admitting that this happened to me and now I want to move into it and I want to use it. So get rid of that word in a staying sense. You can feel it, you can experience it. I'm not going to take away your emotions, definitely not. People get victimized all the time. However, if you want to regain your power and to hold into your stance, you have to dive further and get further than you can ever think of. Because once somebody labels you that, you can stay there pretty long. Embrace femininity. You might be confused. What does femininity have to do with my divine masculine? It's the other half, basically. And you can't awaken divine masculine if you still have skewed views about women. They all go together. So everything we said about, figuring out how to unlearn what we think is men, realizing that's actually the shadow part of it. It's the same thing with women. They're not to anything. That's the shadow part. So the more we balance both, the shadow just releases. Because ladies, your sensitivity is one of the best things about you. And the same with men. And your power is the best thing about you. So all these things that we think are only for one or the other, forget about it. Forget about it. It's not true. It's just not. It is 9:47. Obviously, it was an important topic. So, we're going to continue because this is the second to last week that we were meeting in this fashion. So, it had to be said, and I'm so glad that it was in a timely way that it lined up like that. So we're at week 51, even though we're technically over a year. I wanted to go by weeks. And 51st week, talking about divine masculinity. And if you're tuning in not live, which I think there will be many, I hope that you really hear this and you'll go back to the divine feminine talk and have some questions, because that's how we grow. And now, without further ado, let us go and reclaim all the glory that is the divine masculine. So close your eyes, get into your sacred and safe place, and start to lower down into your breath. And I apologize if you can hear my husband talking to my son and telling him to go to sleep. So as you release the breath and release all the emotions of today, all of them, any expectations, any things that did go your way or didn't go your way, just let the breath ride it out. And as you slowly come into the body with each breath, I'll invite you to once again hold focus on a male energy in your life that is powerful, yet sensitive, that is strong and supportive, that is a protector and a provider. And hold that imagery, that feeling, that thought. And then focus on the breath again. So as you do this, I bet you'll start to build up some heat in your hands. And you'll take your palms as if you're holding a ball, and you can put them in front of you without anything touching, just like this. And then again, thinking of this masculine energy. It'll probably start to heat up pretty quickly. Dear guides and guardians, we are thanking you for your presence in all that we do. Inviting all the strength and the power, the support of the divine masculine, allowing these energies to come and protect us, to bolster us up on our spiritual paths, allowing for all these forces to do massive healing for the entire world. So every breath that we take here, we're sending out this divine masculine energy, the true one, without the shadows, that's going to come in like a very strong bow and arrow of light. Watch it go around the world. Send that arrow straight around the perimeter of the earth. Every inhale and exhale is just honing this energy and allowing it to go all around. And notice if it's going pretty fast. And if it's too fast, see if you can control it with your breath. And then with each exhale, the light path will start to expand. So it won't just be one solid light. It will start to kind of emulsify in a way and just spread out. And you'll have this softer sense of the light expansion of the divine masculine. And as we slowly wrap the entire world in this beautiful sheath of heat and light, continue that circle, that cyclical light. Make sure you cover all areas. And then watch it respread. And you can do it as many times as you feel is necessary. Because as you're doing this, underneath that area, you're healing ozone. You're healing the earth bit by bit. And when we get down to humans, you're healing the thought processes. All these constructs that puts things in categories and boxes will start to gently unravel. All of the divisiveness that is continuously plotted, it will start to heal. Allow the power and the action of the divine masculine to grow stronger in its truth. This is the authentic masculine. It is not a he, but a we. It is there bolstering us, supporting. It raises the divine feminine to its glory. And as the breath deepens, you'll begin to feel that warmth and that heat go directly onto the surface of the earth, allowing the sun now to come through. And you'll see that sun ray go into each mind of all individuals. And you can feel the profound and soft healing. Everyone's face, everyone's body begins to soften. And yet at the same time, their stance changes into strength. Both feet are firmly planted on the earth, fully into the ground. And just like the trees that we are, our root systems begin to grow, intertwine with one another, and communicate the energy and the power. At this point, you might start to notice the heat in your belly into this confidence area, deep into this place of pleasure and sensuality, playing up those masculine parts. Taking note of how nature has gifted us with this external balance, where you'll see high mountains the peaks so high, some covered in snow, you'll see low valleys covered in grass and moss. We have an external balance all around us. And instead of fighting it or taking it apart, we can be invited to heal all parts. So we call upon this divine masculine over and over again, using whatever terms you're comfortable with, because the truth is, it really doesn't matter. As long as your intentions are solid and good, you are heard, and it is received with love. Jesus, God, Father, Spirit, Brother, we are thanking you for such glory here, for this place of continuity, for the entwining of all of our hearts. Allowing for the expansive and seemingly impossible healing to happen for all of men, for all of women, for all parts of our masculinity. And as we do this, you can feel the energy inside of your body become stronger, including the divine parts of you that are feminine. They will call out to one another in a sing-songy way, in a dancing manner. They are friends. They are her family. They are together. And as if you were running through Arizona and Sedona, feeling the masculine and the divine feminine and the vortices there, you'll do the same here, where you'll find your physical being allowed to be on any geographical area. So if you find yourself drawn to water, I want you to find yourself running over the water. If you find yourself by trees, I want you to explore climbing the tree. If you find yourself on the beach, I want you to run in the sand, dive into the water. Everything you do will not here be seen as aggressive, but more as exploring and powerful, more as receiving the benefits of action. So just as it is important to be active and take action, to be a leader, it is also important to receive the divine feminine's way of being more still, more receptive, of actually feeling what you have taken action upon. So here is this experiential place of doing and coming back, going and staying. And one more time, we'll send that light all around the world, and you can send it higher and higher up and outward more and more, and include the galaxies of all things, because they are parts of us. They have been calling to us, and they have given us the chance to explore here, to experience the human form, and to have fun with it. And when we deconstruct our thoughts on how out of whack everything is, it will easily come into balance. And the joy that we experience just by thinking of this will expand over and over again, over and over again, over and over again. Because yes, you are one, but together we are many. And there are so many parts that are moving as we do this. So deepen the breath again. Contact that power. It feels like the heat of the sun to me. It feels like the movement of an animal. That's that type of power that we're talking about. Because at the end of the day, that strong and fast animal comes back to their den or their cubs or whatever and care gives. And that's what we all are working with, that both. And don't forget, in many parts of nature, it is the female that hunts. Probably way in balance with the masculine energy. So think of how all of these things, they work together. And that's what we are doing right now, focusing on this. And we're calling it in. Last week we spoke about calling it in, calling in what you want, what you need. And we're calling it in now for this great place that we're dwelling in to be healed with ease, with smoothness. So now I want you to envision a great face out in the galaxies, a masculine face. And then on the other side, a great face, a great feminine face. And just like night and day, they're going to blow sweet air onto our planet. And watch how their lights intertwine and dance with one another. No competition, just enjoying, harmonizing. Now, wherever your hands are, you're going to take your dominant hand and put it right over your heart. And then you'll take your non-dominant and put it behind that as support. Deepening the breath back, watching those two faces take deep breaths and blow it across all the lands. And then lastly, into you, as you receive the perfect balance of both. And just to seal it in, dear spirits, we ask that we receive a beautiful balance of both divine masculine and divine feminine. And we're asking for you to show us when we are in need of one or the other, and leading us into how to maintain and how to be in that. And also how to teach others with gentleness, but showing the way. And again, we thank you in advance for helping us with this. And tonight's practice is sealed with a nice deep inhale. Big exhale of Om. And take a deep breath in. So wherever you are in this thought, just ending one more time with your favorite or favorite plural male figures that are so supportive, so positive and strong, and yet just very loving. I want you to feel that very deeply. And if they're not entirely only one way, remember that's perfectly normal and fine. And just pick out those parts that reminded you of what the divine masculine is and focus on that. And that's how we call to more of that. We focus on what we really feel good with, and then ultimately we'll get more. Okay, my loves. So I'm going to invite my community to gently wake up and see if they have some feedback for me. Are you guys awake?
Yeah, I'm awake.
Okay, congratulations.
Barely.
Barely. So I won't keep everybody on too long. But what happened? Tell me something.
Oh, I kind of went into my own thing. I couldn't really focus.
If anybody's been watching this weekly, that is Renee's tagline.
It's my own thing.
That's so funny. At least you're consistent, my friend. Kind of went into my own thing. That's so funny.
I don't always.
Kristen and I are like...
Last week I was totally like...
She was totally
you
there.
cracked me in and I
She was
didn't even
there.
notice it.
I believe you.
Yeah,
I'm not making fun of you. I'm just enjoying the funny part of it. Kristen, I'm sure you
That
got
was the
to
one with the altar.
see some things, right?
I saw lots of things.
Lots of things. This is probably,
I'm still,
yeah, this is probably
I,
one of the meditations that would be good painted.
the part where the light was going around,
Yeah.
the arrow, that was really intense. Because when you said, try and slow it down, I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
I know.
But I did. No, it did work. It did work. It was just, it was so intense. It felt like I was actually there. It was the weirdest thing.
So when I start a meditation like that, well, particularly like something where I just know how it's going to go, I could feel it. I could feel how fast it was going. So I was like, and now we're going to back down. But it's
And right before you said the heat in the hands,
Yeah.
my hands went up.
fire. I know. I think that's what's so special for me as a facilitator in something like this, is that because I can feel energy like that, so when I bring more than one person into a meditation, I can actually tell what's happening with the masses. So even if you're on your own, Renee, I could still tell what's going on in your energy field. So
Like I heard what you said, like with the feeling in the hands. I'm like, my hands are already hot. Like,
Oh, they got
I'm
hotter.
Going there because I'm,
yeah.
you know.
Hot hands, Jeannie said, absolutely. Yeah, it's like immediate. So this is important to acknowledge, because when we call for healing work, for energy work with our hands, excuse me, and in in Reiki, like basically we're taught, right, that Usui he called upon Jesus's energy, like we're calling upon the masters, and we're calling upon Jesus' healing hands, basically. That's not how it's taught in those words, but that's really what he was seeking for. He was seeking for healing the way that Jesus could do it. So that's the divine masculine, guys. You can call it, like I said, whatever you want to call it. But so when you think about Reiki, it's like, well, yeah, you're really calling upon this, obviously, I can't think of the word tonight, but just this ton of energy that can really feel intense like that. And when we're specifically only focusing on one, like masculine instead of both divine, feminine as well, you'll start to feel it more in specific parts, like intensely. So that's why I said it's almost fire-like, because it's very, very precise and intense like that. And that's why we started off with like a single stream, because it takes some work to actually let it spread out in a sense, because it's so intense. So yeah, don't you think you should paint that, Kristen? I think that'd be awesome. I think you should.
I just while you were talking, I did my altar from last time.
Oh, nice. Love it. I like that a lot. Oh, that's right. I owe you guys a post about calling it in. I'll get there. Very good. All right, my friends. So, unless Renee has anything glorious to say, even if it was your own, do you see anything else that you want to share?
I was more concentrating on my breath.
Okay. She's on the pillow all cuddled. Jeannie or Mary or anybody else that was watching, if there's anything you want to type in, I will hold a moment before I shut down Facebook because of the lag, and I'll wait. So as I was doing the meditation, I could see, what was happening, and then every time I said something like even as I was doing the Dharma talk tonight, that spirit likes, what they love to do is give you the chills, right? But I'm so hot that what it felt like was, I don't know, like a xylophone, like, and then back down. So like, oh, I'm getting like hot all over in like xylophone form. So that was interesting. I was like, it's different types of chills. Yeah, it's interesting. But I really do think that, I follow, oh, Mary, you're just so glad to be here among the session tonight. Oh, I'm so happy you're here with us. So as I was going to say one thing and now I'm switching to the other one, I'm sorry. But as I said before, healing the past, healing the construct of the male stuff, if it's too painful, like I like to give people out on this, if it's too painful to try to focus on healing certain situations with the male energy or a guy or whatever, I would never tell you to deeply explore. Just remember, when I talk about healing, it doesn't mean that you have to experience like you're like there again. That's not healthy. We don't need PTSD stuff happening all over the place. So my point is, you can make it more diverse and more general. So remember, if you don't want to delve into one person, like healing with one person, what you can easily do, just like what we did in meditation, was think of the whole world or think of certain areas of the world that you feel are really having issues with the imbalance and the shadow stuff. That's what you can do. And if there's specific people that you're okay with thinking about, but you don't want to delve into what you experienced, all you really need to do is like, you can do it over a picture of them. You can do it over something simple. Let's think. Even saying their name or writing it on paper and then just waving your hand over it and doing a meditation like this. Like, it doesn't have to be detailed. Kristen, you're thinking, right? I can tell. So if you have questions on this, please don't hesitate, because you shouldn't be so uncomfortable when you're doing healing that you're experiencing pain. That's not necessary. You're not a martyr. There's no reason for it. Healing can be very, very easy in a sense. As soon as we identify and assess what's going on for us, what we're experiencing, with a little guidance, I can help you get to a place where it's actually really nice and sweet and easy. And there will be probably a release, like crying or whatever, but it won't be, it just won't be painful the way that people think it needs to be. It doesn't need to be like that. So that's another thing to deconstruct in your mind of how healing actually looks or how it should feel. It's just not true. If you've ever had a really good positive session where you feel really healed in something, generally you just feel lighter afterwards. That's the best way to explain it. You just suddenly feel lighter. So you can do this for yourself, because you can call upon all these energies. And that's what I'm trying to teach you guys, to empower you to realize that it's always fantastic to have a facilitator or a guide or a teacher or a mentor. And I'm here for any type of support, that. But I also want you to feel really strong and to really understand how your power can really elevate you to your soul path, and how that soul path is always going to be connected to all of us. It's not just, oh, Kristen decides that she likes music and that's what she does. No, it's Kristen loves music for a reason, because music is her avenue to help others experience healing as well. So while she's not solely doing music therapy for everybody, music is inherently a therapy because it's her soul path, and vice versa. It just goes hand in hand. So when you're really doing this type of work for yourself, you're going to see that it really actually works for everybody else, because the happier and healthier you are, everyone else around you will also be that way. And with that, my friends, I give you all of my love. I really, really hope you found some joy in moments of, whether it was yesterday or today or whatever it is, that you're taking that pause, that you're really stopping for a second going, wow, this is really not just nice, it's joyful. Because more than not, when you start to realize how many you're having, you'll start to have many more of that, because you start to call it in. And then when something that you don't like happens, you'll be able to move through it really, really fast, and you'll be good. So all of my love and blessings to you. I will see you next week for our last one in this way. And if you have input on what you want that to look like, all ears. all ears or years or something. Ha 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 ha. All right, I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Namaste.